Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's GradCracker webinar. This week we're absolutely delighted to be joined by technology giant Fujitsu. Fujitsu offers a full range of technology products, solutions and services, and is focused on human-centric innovation, which, as we'll discover today, is true in the way they work with their clients and also how they approach their recruitment of graduates and look after their people. They have over 27,000 staff globally and work with technologies including artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things and cloud. Fujitsu have worked with GradCracker for over 5 years and so are proud members of the GradCracker 5-year club. And they recruit many students through us every single year, 2 of which are on the panel today. The company hub on GradCracker is filled with information about the career paths at Fujitsu, application process, their people and the Fujitsu way, which covers their values, purpose and code of conduct, which are all really useful things to refer back to after this webinar and include in your applications later this year. Fujitsu's vacancies are currently closed to applications, but they will be reopening their graduate vacancies in September. In the meantime, remember you can follow them on their company hub to be alerted to these roles when they reopen and use their company hub and this webinar to do their research, to do your research. Now you'll all recognise Jessica, but let's meet the panel from Fujitsu. So firstly, we're joined by Hannah, who is a member of the junior talent recruitment team at Fujitsu. Hi, Hannah.
Hiya.
We're going to be talking to Hannah shortly about her role and what she looks for in applications. But we're also joined by Ben, who is a technical consulting graduate, and Becky, who is a software development graduate. Both Becky and Ben joined Fujitsu in September 2020 after applying through GradCracker. So they've been working completely remotely since the start of the graduate scheme and have some great information to share with us about how they found settling into that environment and the amazing support that Fujitsu have provided. But firstly, we're going to go to Hannah and start with Hannah. Can you tell us a little bit more about who Fujitsu are and what you do as a company?
So hello everyone, nice to virtually meet you all and I hope you really enjoy today's session. So Fujitsu are one of the top 5 ICT companies in the world with over 5 decades of experience around the globe. So we deliver customer solutions, cutting edge products, services and solutions to over 100 different countries around the world. And we have more than 156,000 employees worldwide as well. So we've got a wide network of offices based in all different countries, and we're supporting lots of different customers that you may have come across in your day-to-day life. So although with Fujitsu we may not be one of the main logos that you see at the forefront of everything, we're a little bit more behind the scenes. So we like to say that we have met before, you just might not have known it. So a couple of examples around that. So when you switch on the lights, we're working with energy companies to support 15 million UK households and businesses as well, so with electricity. And one thing that I think is really cool that we've done at Fujitsu and that we've actually developed internally is something called Palm Secure. So rather than using your fingerprint to get access to your phone or your facial recognition, Fujitsu actually developed technology using your palm and your vein patterns as your biometric passport for when accessing laptops, cash machines, actually able to access buildings as well. So as I said before, we might not be at that forefront, but we're definitely behind the scenes and you will have come into contact with our technology or some of our people.
Wow, that's amazing, Hannah. That sounds like so futuristic. Brilliant. And what's your current role at Fujitsu? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So I work in the junior talent recruitment team here at Fujitsu. I actually joined Fujitsu as an apprentice myself back in 2012. So I went through the development program as well and joined within the HR function. But I've been within the junior talent recruitment team over the last 5 years. So my day-to-day roles is running assessment centres, working with our advertising suppliers to get all those set up and create those campaigns, talking to our candidates and really helping to guide them through the process. And yeah, again, being able to actually watch them and develop and grow as they join Fujitsu in the future as well.
Brilliant. So if anyone wants to know anything about the graduate recruitment process at Fujitsu, you are the perfect person.
Yes.
So moving on to that. So what are the graduate schemes that you offer at Fujitsu for STEM students? Because I know you've got a few different streams.
So we have several different streams within Fujitsu. We have one intake per year in September. So if you're looking to apply, we usually open for applications in the September in the year before for a start date of that following September. So we have two kind of different routes within, and then there's role families within those routes. So we have kind of our technical roles, which are our software development, cybersecurity, technical consultants and software developers. And then our non-technical stream, which are more the business management roles, project management roles, HR, marketing, and things like that. So we've got two slightly different streams. All start at the same time, all are exactly the same in terms of length and kind of the program that you'll be taking part in. But what's really important that we feel at Fujitsu is that even in our more technical roles, we do ask that you've been studying a STEM subject, but that can be, it doesn't have to be a computer science degree if you're going into software development. It can be in maths, it can be in biology, it can be in any of those STEM subjects, because what's important, and I'm sure the guys on the panel will explain today, is that you're given that support and that extra knowledge that you need as part of that role. So that technical knowledge can come along slightly later. We just ask that you have that passion for any of our job roles at Fujitsu, technical or non-technical.
Yeah, and I think that's something that would be surprising to a lot of people watching today, that looking at a company like Fujitsu that is, so heavily technology focused, that actually you will take from so many different backgrounds onto those technical streams. And you're right, yeah, Ben and Becky are going to kind of expand on that as we meet them a little bit later on. So one of the other things I want to touch upon with you, Hannah, is where are the graduates, will they typically be based when they join Fujitsu? Because you've got a couple of main hubs that you recruit into for graduate, don't you?
Definitely. So we think it's really important for any of our junior talent recruitment that they have a key hub that they are based at. So our main hubs are in Bracknell, Basingstoke, Manchester, Warrington, and we've got a few in Solihull as well. Mainly for that community aspect, we really want to make sure that our grads feel like they're part of a community and they've got a real supportive network around them. So we can make sure that things are happening at those key hubs. There's supportive buddies on site, and there's also previous kind of alumni that have been on the graduate scheme there as well. But being very honest, it's been a bit different, obviously, over the last year because of everything that's been happening with coronavirus. So what you'll also hear from some of the guys on the panel today is that we basically told a lot of the candidates not to move at that point. Why would we pick up our candidates, move them to an area that they're not familiar with when they're not able to get out and socialize and make those networks or be in an office? So it's been slightly different over the last year. And I think I can see that being taken forward as we go forward into kind of post-COVID. What's that going to look like? Is there going to be that requirement to be in the office? But I think we'll still have those key hubs, and that's where we'll remain to base our junior talent. So there's still that theme behind there. But I think that we could be open to a lot more widespread approach to our intake.
Great, thanks, Hannah. And kind of sticking with what effect coronavirus has had is, I know that obviously you've had to make quite a few changes to your recruitment process in terms of to accommodate like virtual assessment and things. So can you tell us a little bit about how you see that assessment process working this year, and then what you think that'll look like for the future as well?
Definitely. So I won't sugarcoat it. When obviously coronavirus came in last year, we were in the midst of running our assessment centres, and we'd pretty much filled probably about 20% of our roles, and we still had a lot to recruit. So we had some different approaches that we could have taken at that point. Do we pause recruitment? I'm so glad we didn't, because where would we be now? Do we continue? Do we put a virtual offering in place? What's that going to look like? How would that work? We've never done that before. We were a little bit scared as to if it was going to do what we needed it to do. But I'm pleased to say that we did go with that virtual offering. So since March last year, and for obviously all the recruitment so far we've done for this year, it's a virtual assessment centre. I think they're really important that we are sticking with these virtual assessment centres, and that we've managed to onboard everyone virtually last year. And I think from our perspective, specifically at Fujitsu, those virtual environments and that virtual assessments is probably going to be here to stay for a while. And we know that it's working. We're still able to get the really great caliber of candidates that we need. We were able to successfully onboard a whole group of 70 graduates and apprentices virtually as well. And they're all performing really, really well in their day-to-day job roles. So I think for us, whether it will be 100% virtual is yet to be seen, whether we'll do a little bit of maybe online assessments as part of a virtual environment, and then a face-to-face interview. So there's that two kind of hybrid approach that we're also considering. But I think that virtual element is definitely here to stay.
Yeah, brilliant. And we're going to hear from Ben and Becky as well about their experiences kind of joining Fujitsu in a virtual world. And so if that is something that's going to be here to stay, that's going to be really valuable for, you know, the graduates that'll be going through the process next year as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Hannah. We're now going to move on and meet our graduates. So Ben, can you start by telling us a little bit more about where you went to uni, what you studied, and what your current role at Fujitsu is?
Of course, yeah. I'm Ben, and yeah, I went to the University of Manchester and studied physics. So I did a 4-year MPhys in physics, kind of specialising in particle physics. And yeah, I joined Fujitsu in September 7th, I think it was. And now I'm a technical consultant in the Oracle practice, which probably doesn't mean a lot to most people. But what it is working with a company called Oracle, who make database solutions for companies, for businesses. And we work with our customers to make consultative solutions for them. So we're kind of designing these underlying database solutions for them. So it's a lot of kind of coding, technical work, but not too much hard coding, more kind of problem solving and working with a customer. Yeah.
And before you joined, Ben, did you have experience of any of these technologies before you joined Fujitsu?
No, never heard of Oracle. Turned up to the interview, wasn't really sure about it. I had to Google all these terms on the way up. And the thing is really, like, it as a graduate coming out of university, it's more important about the skills that you have and the kind of ability to learn, which is what, I mean, in terms of technical, having a STEM degree, that's what you're showing really. And I had done some coding. I'd done a bit of Python, a bit of C++, but I don't use any of that now. But the concepts you learn whilst coding, if you can code in one language, you can, you know, learn to code in other languages. And they're not looking for people who have years of experience in these things. We're looking for people that we can train and develop. It's a junior talent training and developing scheme. So it's about finding the raw talent and you know, yeah, helping everyone develop that way. People, I mean, I had an all right coding background, but people in my team had no coding background at all, really, and they're still doing really well, and they've picked it up super quickly. So, yeah, it's those raw skills and transferable skills. Yeah.
Brilliant. And I think that's something that I really want people to take away today about, you know, when they're looking at Fujitsu. Just because you haven't got a computing background doesn't mean that you're not going to be right for the roles. As Ben said, it's more about your kind of raw skills and who you are as a person that Fujitsu are looking for.
Definitely.
So Becky, coming to you, where did you go to uni? What did you study? And what does being a software development graduate involve?
So I'm Becky. I went to the University of Warwick and I studied maths and also I did German. So I studied maths in Germany for a year, and I also took some elective computer science modules all the way through my degree. I would say the coding that I did at university, which was mainly Java, C and MATLAB, has not really influenced the coding that I've done since I started. It was a lot of back-end sort of mathsy coding, whereas now as a software developer, I'm in the application and multi-cloud services team. So obviously that's not going to mean much to most people, but basically I'm an application developer. So I work mainly in the front end, creating applications both for internal and external clients. And yeah, so I basically have learned everything that I know since I started. And so have most people on my team. I don't think any of us are from a computer science background, but now we're all amazed like how far we've come in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I know that's a lot to have learned in 6 months, isn't it? I was just thinking that, I can't believe it.
Becky, would you say that when you were at university, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do once you finished? You know, decided to do maths and then do the modules of, you know, computer science and software and stuff like that as parallel. Did you always knew you wanted to work for a technology firm, or what was your intention?
I honestly had absolutely no idea. I think before I went to university, I had the idea that I'd be like some mathematician researcher.
Yeah.
And then I got there and realized that really wasn't what I wanted to do. I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go into banking. I didn't want to do actuarial sciences, which a lot of the cohort that I went to uni with did. So it was really when I was starting my 4th year and I decided that I wanted to kind of start considering more seriously what I wanted to do. And I basically just went on to GradCracker and filtered by jobs that you could get with a master's degree, and just kind of scrolled through and was looking at loads of different things. And I realized that I'd taken the software development modules because I found it interesting. That was something that I was passionate about, even if I hadn't realized that was what it meant at the time. So when I came across software development roles that were open to maths graduates, I kind of thought that sounds perfect for me.
To me, this is the great thing, and it's something that I say to students on a daily basis. To me, I always find, obviously I'm going to be biased saying job hunting on GradCracker is the best, but it is because you go through that search, and I say all the time, you can be presented with finance, with banking, with technology, intellectual property firms, law firms, engineering consultancies, all these different range of companies that want you. And as Hannah said, a lot of these companies are wanting STEM students because of all the fabulous skills that, these grads and undergrads have. And I think it's such an exciting part now of people's kind of career journey to see all the options that are out there, and kind of hearing it from you two, landing a great job with Fujitsu just kind of proves that it just shows your career can take you in any direction, no matter what STEM background you're from. So, all exciting. So I know, Sophie, you mentioned right at the beginning, didn't you? Obviously working remotely, and with the COVID restrictions, have meant that you've been working from home. But when these restrictions are lifted, what offices will you both be working in? So, Ben, starting with you, what's your life going to look like, hopefully, in the near future?
Oh, good question. No, I'll be in the Warrington office. So I'm living currently in Manchester, just outside Didsbury, and I'll be commuting into the Warrington office. I have been once to fix my laptop, but apart from that, not really. It's going to be different. It's going to be interesting, but looking forward to it, definitely.
Yeah, are you looking forward to that kind of transition of probably seeing everyone, being able to touch them, say, "Oh, I know."
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know about how you might be distancing at first, but but it would be actually nice to see people in person. It's very easy. We've got very used to kind of like setting up calls and seeing each other virtually. And I was saying the other day, like how used to being on Zoom and being on Teams and everything like that. It's very natural now. But it would be nice to see people in person, and especially like my manager and people we haven't seen since. Well, my final interview day was just over a year ago now, and I haven't seen these people in just over a year, and it's weird. But I've worked with them for 6 months, and some of them I've not even met before, and especially some calls, some people don't like to put their cameras on, and others are. The younger people seem more willing to, and the older people don't so much. But some of like the managers and stuff who don't put their cameras on, I don't even know what they look like, So it would be really nice to. I mean, usually if you put your cameras on, they will put their cameras on, but and it is very like friendly, whatever. But yeah, it'd be nice to see them in real life, and I'll be able to say, oh yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting though.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's funny, isn't it? When it all kind of happened last March. I don't know if I should mention the word TikTok, but there was a video outside the day of us all kind of lifting up our laptops, waving each other off. Yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. It'll be fun. And then it's a year later, and we're all thinking, what was the office like again? Becky, so what's your plans? So after you kind of obviously restriction lifted, what's your plans going back into the office? What will life look like for you?
So I'm based in the Bracknell office, which is kind of in between Reading and London. I'd never heard of Bracknell before I got the job, so at the moment I'm living in Reading with a friend from university. So I guess in a way my life won't change that much in that I'm already living near to the office, but I'm very excited to have a reason to leave the house every day. That's something that I definitely don't do enough. And just meet. I've made some great friends online, in the last like 6 months, getting to know people.
Yeah.
We've still been able to make friends despite the fact that it is online, and we do have social events, but it's not the same as meeting people in person. So I'm very excited to meet people who I consider a friend in person for the first time. That's quite weird, but I'm very much looking forward to it.
Crazy where we're living, but yeah, that you've almost got something still massively to look forward to, though, haven't you? That it's going to be a new element of the kind of the graduate scheme now. You've done one part and experiencing the next. Okay, so just kind of all going back then to back in time and thinking about what initially attracted you to Fujitsu. So as I mentioned, you're kind of going through the graduate search, you're seeing all these amazing companies, and what made Fujitsu stand out for you? So I'm going to come back to you, Ben. What was your kind of initial attraction to them?
So sorry, I thought you come back. I thought you went go to Becky, come back to me later. No, don't worry. Yeah, what was my initial attraction? Well, yeah, I was just, and as Becky said, I used GradCrack almost exclusively for my kind of searching for jobs, because I am biased, I guess, in a way, but it is the best one, and definitely for STEM. You've got all the STEM jobs in that location. So I was just scrolling through, and I knew what I wanted. I kind of thought consultancy was the way I wanted to go, and coding and tech I liked. Obviously doing physics, I thought about physics jobs, but they're very limited to things that are actually to do with physics, which you can go and do a job in. It's like laser photonics and some other things like that, but it's not a wide range. Fujitsu itself, I think, if I'm honest, I did apply to a lot of companies with the hope, you got to be like, oh, I just want any of these things. But I like the idea of technical consultancy, and I like this idea of being able to solve people's problems. And actually, it was once I started on researching the company, I realized actually this is a really big company. As Hannah said, you haven't heard of it, and then it's it's fifth biggest ICT company, and you think, is it? And then everyone thinks it's that camera company, Fujifilm or whatever. And the number of times you get, oh, the camera company, yeah. But all of a sudden I realized actually this is a big company. It's really I don't know, you feel like you're going to get proper training there. You feel, and it is, and it's a huge, like, breadth of knowledge, and you want that kind of formal training backed by a big company. That's kind of what attracted me. And then I started reading to other things and thinking, actually, I like the way that they do things. It's like focus on sustainability and human-centric innovation. It kind of spoke to me in that way. And I thought, and the further I got down the process, I was actually, I can really see myself here. This is a really good company. And I remember someone saying to me, I think this is actually after I accepted the job, and I was leaving. I used to live in Surrey, and I moved up to Manchester for the job. And he said, oh, it's a Japanese company. And I said, yeah, it's Fujitsu, Japanese company. He said, they will treat you really well. And they really do. And I was reading an article today about, I think, Goldman Sachs promising that they were going to give their employees Saturdays off. And I thought, that's ridiculous. and Fujitsu's not like that at all. They're very, very understanding that people have a life, and that, kind of, that 9 to 5 is a bit outdated, and I don't know, it's, they want you to do your work. Obviously you have to work that way, but the more and more I've seen this company, I thought, wow, this is really good. I made the right decision.
So from this early experience, by the sounds that you can also almost imagine a long career with them.
Definitely. And I think, like, it's hard and it's easy to think. I think the initial attitude I had was, well, if I'm honest, the initial attitude I said was go to the Big Four, go there for 2 years, do the graduate scheme, and then I'll just go off somewhere else, and I'll take that training, and then I'll move on. And that was my attitude for a while, until I got rejected by well, no, that's not quite true, but I'm glad that I did, in a way, because actually I started to realize that that's not, you shouldn't be looking at work in that way. And I think that you have to really see yourself in a company. You can't start living your life in these 2-year chunks and think, well, I'll just do this for a bit and I might not enjoy it. But then you've got to really think of yourself there and think, actually, this is a company I really like, and I can see myself for a long time. So yeah.
I like that. That's a good point. That, I wonder if I might have to ask that question a bit more to students. Do they think more short term when job hunting? Because you want to be in something. How quick 2 years go. Look how quick this year's gone. So you do want to be thinking long term.
I think
Becky, same kind of question to you then. What initially attracted you to Fujitsu? Was it a similar story to Ben, or?
Yeah, so I guess I was looking through jobs, that you could get with a master's degree, and I was just clicking through, and I ended up on the Fujitsu hub on GradCracker, and I saw a few keywords, like there was award-winning for the grad program, and looking how big it is, like it is important to me, I think, to not just have colleagues in England. Like I wanted to have a big international company where I'd have the opportunity to work with like a diverse range of people. And I know since I started, like I had a group meeting this morning with a couple of guys from Germany, so that was really nice. Given I used to live there, it's like nice having something to chat about. I've been on calls with people from India, people from Australia, all over Europe as well. Like our grad cohort is not just England, it's like everywhere in Europe. So it's been amazing, and one of the big important things to me to be part of a company with like such a diverse range of people. So that was the main thing, I think, that I knew it wasn't going to be something small that was just like a 2-year thing. Like with it being such a diverse company and all over the world, like I can see myself, I want to live abroad when I'm in a few years, but I can still work for Fujitsu and do that. So I wanted that to be an opportunity that I could still work for the company, but also move around the world and have loads of different experiences.
That's brilliant. That's good. And I think that's key of doing your research before you apply. Make sure, does this employer tick my boxes, and can I tick their boxes? So obviously that was a win-win for both, which is brilliant. So next I want to talk about the recruitment process, and kind of talk us through starting. Obviously you've put your application in, so what was next and what was the experience like? So I'm going to come back to you, Ben.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a nice segue, as you said, like about researching the company, but I'll come back to that later. The recruitment process, I think you start off with just like a basic application, attached CV, and I'll be honest, it's quite standard, and most companies are very similar processes. Attach a CV, do a situational judgment test, I think is next. I'm looking at Hannah for validation here. Who knows? Then it's a maths, a logic, and an English test, which I enjoyed the maths and logic tests, not so much the English test, from a STEM background. And then it's the video interviews, and we were going to say that they're actually assessed by graduates, and I've been assessing this year's cohort of video interviews. So yeah, it's quite a good like, I think it's 5 questions or whatever, 5 or 6 questions. You answer them, and assessed by graduates who are in your role generally beforehand, who help progress you to the next stage. Then they take all that and they give you a score, I think, and then they will progress you, if you're successful, to the interview day, an assessment center. And obviously when I applied, it was actually in person, just about. And I turned up to the office, and it was kind of in the morning, it's a set of presentations and exercises, and then in the afternoon, if you're successful, you go through the final interviews, and then that's it. So it seems like a lot of steps when you put it like that, but it's quite standard, I think, in terms of that's what most companies are doing now. But yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Hannah, I'm going to jump to you one sec. What would be your kind of best hints and tips you could give to anyone listening to kind of ace the assessment centre with Fujitsu? Obviously the virtual ones have a different kind of experience. So anyone who's either, going through the assessment centre in the next couple of weeks, or anyone that's going to be applying to you next year, what kind of hints and tips would you give them for them that are going to be?
I think one of the most important things that I always say to students when I'm speaking at kind of careers events or any kind of skill sessions is for those earlier elements, as Ben said, a lot of companies will have a standard kind of, you're going to come across those psychometric testings, you may come across a situational judgment test, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to come across that video interview. And there is so much guidance out there now on terms of how to succeed at those. So many practice tests. That's one thing I will always say is just practice until you feel comfortable with completing those, because then when it comes to the real thing, you know what to expect, you know what's going to come along. But by the same token, is if you're not sure on something, reach out to that graduate recruitment team. We have Katie in our team who's looks after kind of any queries or questions that come in. If you're not sure on something or how it can be completed, reach out to us, because we don't want you to struggle. We want you to do the best that you can as part of our process. But I think when it gets to that assessment centre stage, that's when it starts to, you really need to know your research, know your stuff about us as a company. We quickly work out at assessment centre who has a very similar kind of values to us as a company. That's really important. So even before you put an application in, take a look at a company's website, look at what their core values are. Do they align with yours? Because then all the conversations that you have when you get to an assessment centre stage become a bit more natural. You're not putting on a facade or something that you want them to hear. It's actually stuff that you truly believe in. So as it's been mentioned, sustainability is really important to us in everything we do at Fujitsu. So if you share that same value, bring that along to the assessment centre, do your research, see what we've done in our kind of our case study and with our customers to bring that in. And that's how really helps those candidates stand out.
Brilliant. Research
is key.
Becky, did you have a similar experience? Was it very similar to Ben? Kind of the application process, and if so, any hints and tips that you can give? Are we going to video interviews, by the way? That's the next question, because I want to on that.
So yeah, it was a very similar process to Ben, even though it's a slightly different role. I would say the thing that made Fujitsu a little bit different was at the assessment day. I know this is not relevant anymore because it's not in person, but the group tasks in the morning, it was sort of like almost like an escape room, in that you had a certain amount of time, I think it was an hour or so, and you had to get through as many of these like logic challenges and teamwork challenges as you could in like a group of, I think it was about four or five people, and it was so much fun, honestly. Like all the other interviews and that I did, they were quite like nerve-wracking and serious almost, whereas this like escape room kind of style thing really helped put everyone at ease. And by the time I got to my interview in the afternoon, we were just having like a nice chat, it was not at all tense, or I wasn't that nervous, because you had got to know my now line manager and the recruitment people throughout the day. So it was just like a nice friendly atmosphere. I remember grilling Hannah as well throughout the day about sustainability, because that's one of like something that's really important to me, and I knew that was something that was a core value of Fujitsu. So in all of like our free time, I was asking questions, like just grilling her about how my core values would fit in with Fujitsu's core values.
Right, everyone listening, this is how you do it. This is exactly how you do it. This is why you guys are where you are today.
I think the guy that, because I did the same, and I really grilled this guy with questions at the lunchtime, and I was asking him, and I think when he saw me on the graduate call, he thought, oh no, this guy got through, he's going to ask me more questions now. He really remembered me. But it is, because if you're actually interested in the company, and as you're saying, like, it's so easy to put on a facade and think, well, I'm going to go and just act like this and do this, but it does come off eventually, and it's actually usually quite easy to see through. And actually, I'm really glad, because I was a lot more relaxed at my Fujitsu interview day, and it showed that it was a place that I needed to be, or a place that was best for me. And people often say, applying to a job, it's a two-way street, because you can pretend that you're somebody, but actually they want a certain type of person. If you're not that type of person, it's bad for both of you. So
Yeah,
should come out like properly. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think that's something, a really important atmosphere we try to create at all of our assessment centres. So we feel that if you're under pressure, if you're stressed, if you're concerned about something, we're not going to see your true self. You're not going to feel comfortable to actually put forward your points of views that you would like. So that's a really important atmosphere we try to create at assessment centres. And yeah, like Becky and Ben have said, ask those questions. Everybody that's in part of the assessment centre, even our Q&A volunteers that we have to support, they all kind of have an input, and those people stand out that are asking those questions. And grilling us helps because it shows to us that you really want to know what's happening at Fujitsu, and it's important to you. So yeah, good top tip there. Ask those questions.
Hannah, so obviously Becky stood out for you then.
I specifically remember Becky's assessment centre because she was asking me around sustainability. You asked to see our strategy, which I was able to actually then send on to her following on from the interview. And it's important because even though obviously we're not directly picking and selecting the people that our hiring managers hire, they ask for our influences. They ask how those conversations have gone in the bits that they're not seeing. So yeah, it's a collective approach that they take our opinions on, and the assessors' opinions as well. They take those on board when making those selections.
Perfect, love it. So going on to the video interviews then, because I've actually never heard, and I don't know if you have, Soph, but I've never heard the graduates getting involved with the video interviews and kind of so sorry, well, let me make that clear. So you're getting involved in the video interviews for the students that have been applying this year.
Yes.
So you've been assessing them, watching them. Tell me everything about this, because I've never heard a company do this. I think it's brilliant. And I've had a bit of, just for the audience, we've discussed this slightly before, and I've been already nicking your hints and tips because I think they're great. So yeah, I want everyone to hear them and tell me everything. What's it like? What's the video interview like? What can people expect? I think there's a lot of general advice here a lot of people can take from this session, really, isn't there? So it's
absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, and as much as I don't want to give, like any advice I give is going to be general to any interview you do. So whether it's Fujitsu, of course I want you to apply to Fujitsu, but it's going to be general advice. But I'd say I assessed both graduate and apprentice videos, and the key thing, which I'm probably not doing very well now, is expressing like energy and expressing enthusiasm and kind of showing body language. It's really difficult on a video interview to do that, and you don't realize that you're doing it because you sit there and and it's easy to say, like, don't sit there and be monotone and
now getting nice.
but try and you have to come across as genuine, and it should be easy if you are genuine and enthusiastic, but it's important to say that and come across, and it's the way you deliver it as much as what you say, because quite a lot of the questions they're all right, they're fairly generic, and so it's very hard to come across with something that's like a really like incredibly good answer unless you've done some really good research, which is coming to my next point. But it's quite often about the way you say it and the enthusiasm you have, and that, as I said, the second tip is kind of do your research, because honestly the number of times I've heard my values align with the company's values, and I think, do you know the company's values? Like, it's very easy to say that. I could say it about any company, and similarly, I'm hardworking, motivated. It needs to be specific, and you can look up and see, as I said, we've already mentioned sustainability today, human-centric innovation, and all these other things that you can look up and say, okay, I actually do align with the specific values for this company. And that's and kind of putting in sort of buzzwords like that, it might seem a bit cheesy, but that's important because it makes it realize you've actually been on the website, the company, and you don't think we're the camera company or something like that. I don't know, but like it's kind of doing that, I would say. And those are the two main things I think I look out for, and it's very obvious straight away if someone's done their research, if they're passionate. Instantly, it's just so much easier to pass them, essentially. Whereas people who sit there and sometimes what I found, actually, not even sometimes, is most of the time the apprentices were much better than the graduates. So I'm sorry, any graduates who are sitting here listening to it, the apprentices did a lot better job because they were actually really enthusiastic. They've not gone through years of university and I don't know, it's a different path, because a lot of people go through university and they take a grad job. these people obviously really wanted it, and you could tell. And I was surprised because I thought, apprentices are probably a bit younger, less experienced. Actually, I was being more lenient with the graduates than I was the apprentices. So it's something to keep in mind, because it really is about how much you want it, and it will reflect in the way you answer your questions.
For Becky, sorry, I will come to you. I want all your hints and tips as well. But just for anyone that isn't aware of what a video actually entails, can we go and explain that, if that's all right? So there's any, students that are not too sure. So the idea is you don't see anyone else, do you? You literally just see yourself, don't you?
Yeah, so I probably should have started with that rather than jumping straight into it. But so you open a portal, and it will give you kind of a question. It will give you 30 seconds to prepare, and you are just recording yourself answering a question. I think you can choose whether you get to see yourself doing it or not. Okay. But you're just answering a question for, I think it's a minute it gives you to answer each question, and you just you go and you speak. And that's hard because you don't have the natural kind of engaging with somebody. Like, even on this, I can see you guys nodding and the positive feedback. If something's landed well, you don't know if it's not. You have to kind of be confident to just go and say your answer and be fluent. And also, I would say, which I'm not doing a very good job on, is know when to stop, because sometimes you don't need to speak for a minute. You just need to speak for 30 seconds. You've said it all. Just say, you can stop the recording, and that is it. I don't think you get second tries on it, but just be, you don't. It's not always good to keep going. Know when to stop. Which
I know exactly what you mean. I've got a bit of that. I know when to stop. Shut up.
I'm the same. So I'm probably a bad example of it, but it is important to know when you finish an answer and just say, that's it.
Yeah.
And on that note.
On that note, Ben. Becky.
Yeah.
So tell me about what you've experienced.
I mean, everything that Ben has said has definitely been relevant, though I haven't been interviewing any apprentices. I've only done graduates, so I can't say whether I agree with that assessment. I think the two main tips that I would have first is remember that there is another person at the other end of the video interview. There might not be live, but I this year have sat and I've watched, I don't know how many video interviews, one after another, being engaging, being interested, being passionate. It stands out when you're watching 100 interviews, being engaging and just being a little bit, you don't need to be super professional, having a little, acting as if you're talking to a friend is probably the best way I would describe how I want to be talked to. I don't need to be talked to super professionally. I just want to see your passion and your interest in those answers. And I think, again, with that, imagining you're talking to a friend and you don't have to be super professional, is in an answer, say about what you're proud of or what your biggest achievement is, or there's so many companies ask something like that. It doesn't need to be academic. Telling me that you're proud of your master's thesis is great, because I'm sure you are. But if there's something that makes you stand out, maybe you learned a language, or maybe you have a sporting achievement, those are still very valid answers, not just academic answers. And I've forgotten my second point, so I will end my answer there instead of.
No, it's a very good
actually, sorry, I have remembered. Answer the question. Don't just talk for a minute. I guess this again is similar to Ben's. Don't carry on rambling, but also make sure you do answer the question, because so many times, somebody's talked about something vaguely relevant but hasn't answered the question. Especially, I guess one specific tip would be start your answer with the words from the question, so that you 100% are sure that you are answering that question.
That's a good idea. I like that.
I was going to say as well, kind of on a similar vein, and I'm not sure so much for Fujitsu's question, some of them maybe, situational questions. It's that STAR technique, and if you haven't heard of the STAR technique, really look it up. It will help you so much with video interviews. It's structuring your answer in that way. I think it's situation, task, action, result. I'm trying to
Yeah, no, I do remember that, Ben.
trying to remember them.
I need to say it. If he doesn't get there, I'm going to have to remember it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, but look it up, and it's so if people are asking you like certain situations, show me when you demonstrated that, show me it's really important to answer like that, and it helps you structure your answer, and come round, and also helps you close it off really nicely as well.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, no, I think that was really useful. Yeah, and as Ben and Becky have said, like all that guidance is going to be useful for lots of for all your different applications, and obviously this is really specific to Fujitsu. We've got 2 graduates here who have been successful going through this process. We've got Hannah from the recruitment team saying the same things. This is how you get onto the Fujitsu graduate scheme, which I'm sure all of you are dying to do now. But we're going to move on to now, life at Fujitsu. So what it's been like since you've actually joined the company. So as we heard, you joined in September this year. So you've been there around 6 months now. Want to start by just finding out a little bit more about the type of training and development you've had so far, and anything that's kind of in the pipeline. So Ben, coming back to you.
I did put a list of all the modules that we've done, and I've not got my monitors, so I can't flick between the two, but I still can remember. The most recent one we had was business awareness, which is kind of understanding Fujitsu's business structure, and we actually kind of ran a fake company, which was essentially Fujitsu, in the market, and did things like bidding and kind of developing. And the idea was to take our kind of old-fashioned infrastructure business to an integration and cloud business, and it's something that Fujitsu are doing and a lot of companies are doing now. But that was really cool, because as a physics graduate, I don't know anything about business, and I didn't, and in that part of the company I didn't, so it actually helped me understand. On top of that, we've had a load of kind of like personal development, time management, kind of managing up, which is kind of helping this two-way stream between you and your manager, because I mean, especially in Fujitsu, it's a very chilled out relationship, I found, at least for my line manager, and it is a two-way street where they're not just telling you what to do, you are helping them, and it's a kind of a process of pushing and pulling in order to get something done and develop yourself. I'm trying to think the others. Time management, as I said, and I'm gonna hand off to someone else to see if they can remember any more, but I'll check my list in a second and see what I've missed, because there's a bunch.
No, that's fine. Becky, have you had anything that's either different to, or anything that Ben hasn't mentioned that you wanted to raise?
Yeah, so I guess, my first 6 months have been very training heavy, I guess, mainly because I'm in a technical role, so they need us all to get up to a certain standard. So I guess I'll say briefly about the first week was mornings with the junior talent team, and then afternoons were with my own smaller team.
Yeah.
And in the morning it was more kind of general, this is what Fujitsu is and these are how you use the systems, and in the afternoon it was sessions run by the other members of the team to help us get to know them, but also learn how to use systems. And then after that I had 3 months of technical training, including like practice projects, some independent learning, some learning led by other graduates. It was nice getting to know, it was an opportunity to get to know the other people starting in my team, because we were all in like little groups doing these training projects. And then after the 3 months were up, it was sort of, I started going into actual roles where I was in teams with people from throughout the team, not just the new joiners, and working on actual projects. But since then, I get to choose my own training. So they aim to make us into a T-shaped developer. So the top is having skills in like a wide range of areas. So maybe like AWS and cloud development, front end, back end, being like a rounded individual, but then we can choose whichever area we want to go into. So I've personally chosen user interface and user experience and front-end design, and then we can choose to go into a lot more depth in our training for that. So that's the lots of areas with one specialty, which is like the T.
Yep. Oh, cool.
And alongside, I've done all of the other training as well, the business acumen, personal branding, time management, all of that goes alongside the work that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, carry on, Ben.
I would say I think Becky explained it a lot better. I realised I should have structured myself a bit better though. I was just talking about the junior talent modules we did, but actually I have had a very similar experience in terms of development and training, and a lot of it is focused on that in the first 6 months. But yeah, just to clarify what I was talking about, perhaps. But yeah, sorry, back to you, Sophie.
Like ongoing then throughout the graduate scheme, this training underpins everything, doesn't it? You know, it's a continual learning process that you guys go through. In terms of projects, Becky, is there any kind of major ones that you could mention, or any clients that you've worked with that you can tell us about, or is it all top secret? Is there anything specific you can give us and kind of what you've been up to?
So I don't know. I don't think I can be specific with who I've been working with, which companies, but I can tell you a bit about like the style of projects. So I have worked on a proof of concept, which was with pre-sales, bidding to a large company that we work with, proposing it was like a new idea that they come up with. So it was my team's job to create that new idea, bring it to life, so that when they wanted to pitch it to this company, they could say, hey, look, it exists, it's great, this is what we want to make, except on a bigger scale, and we think it would be great for you. So I was on the team that sort of brought that to life. I've worked on internal projects, making kind of a portal for a part of Fujitsu to help kind of, I don't know what I can say actually. Basically, we are helping transform some processes from time-consuming processes that you did by hand into more digital cloud-based solutions, so that you have a better experience and it takes less time, and it's just a better experience overall.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah.
And Ben, is there anything in particular that you can mention that you've been up to so far? Have you worked on any major projects yet? Are you still kind of embedding and getting trained up and things?
Yeah, I'm actually still kind of training. I'm signed on to a project, but it's been difficult with COVID because everything has been kind of pushed and messed about with. And I think I was originally supposed to start now, but it's been pushed back to June. I mean, I'm not sure if I can mention company names anyway, but we do in our practice do a lot of government work, and I was going to be on a government project, which is quite cool. But the stuff that I've been doing otherwise, it's a lot of training. I've done 2 accreditations in this time in Oracle Cloud, which is similar to the AWS and Azure trainings in that way. And we've started recently on a kind of internal project, which is to do with tracking skills within the company. So it's kind of when you want to see your employees and how many skills they've got, and also where you want to move in the future, is for managers to try and like work these things out. But that's been really fun, and a lot of that's been based around agile mentality and agile working, which is something that if you work in tech you'll see a lot of, and is also worth looking up as well.
I would say definitely know what that is before you go to your interview, because
Yeah.
I didn't, and I very much regretted it when they asked me about it.
Yeah, and I'll just give a brief overview for those who are curious. Kind of, there are 2 general ways that things are developed, and a kind of the old-fashioned way is waterfall development, where you set out a contract and you say, I want you to make this. You go away to the company, Fijitsu would go away and they would make everything, and come back and they'd say, here it is. goodbye. Like that's your contract. We did all the things you said, and that's sold, and we tie it there. With Agile, what you do is you work with the customer the whole time to develop through kind of iterative process. There's a lot of kind of things you do, meetings that you have, and kind of like ways in which it's done, but it's essentially working with the customer to develop a solution as you go, so they can say, actually, I don't like that, can we change that, and actually this would be a good idea. And certain things work better with the waterfall method, but a lot of things like designing an app, it's useful for someone to say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like the color on that, I don't like the way that looks, can we change it? Because if you don't, then they just get the app at the end, and well, tough,
No,
So
by the way, Ben,
yeah.
this is exactly what we're going through internally at work at the moment. So
Oh, really?
we are rebuilding the GradCracker app. And I'm constantly speaking to our web developers, and I'm like, yeah, can we change that?
I'm sure they love that.
Yeah.
But it's super important, because that's it. Otherwise you come out with an app and you'd be like, oh, they should have done this, they could have done that, and you have to start a new project all over again. So some things, and like app development, is super useful for installing big database systems, maybe not so useful because it's not as kind of impactful. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been working on Agile projects now.
And I think one of the best things about Agile development is that it is more developer-led.
Yeah.
So as a member of the development team, you're deciding as a team who's going to work on what the tasks, you're going to break it down into, what's important. So you're working with your product owner and your Scrum Master, but it is the development team are leading the development, as opposed to it being dictated, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. So it means you can work on the stuff that you find interesting. You can like really hone in, like, I'm really good at this, so I'm going to do this. Whereas before, I think you might have ended up being assigned something that you weren't as keen on. So it being developer led is great for developers to have a better experience overall.
I'd agree with that, and one thing I would say is that I'm conscious of time. I know we're quite close to the 3 o'clock, but it's something where I was very quick. I think when you're in a big company, it's very easy to get bogged down in kind of corporate things and things that you think, is this useful, is it not? And Agile to me came across, and I thought, is this just one of those things? Am I gonna? Because quite often these things get palmed off, and you think, oh, I have to do it this way. Agile is actually really useful. Agile and things like Scrum Masters, you might think, what's a Scrum Master? That is actually something that I thought was genuinely really, really useful. And it's not just there as a tick box, it's actually a really, really good idea. So it's important to just not get put off by these words, and because there's a lot of acronyms and things like that in corporate. Agile is good. Look it up. It's honestly makes a lot of sense, and it's a genuine thing you should look at.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. If you don't already know, and you want to find out more about Agile, make sure you look it up before you go through the recruitment process. I'm going to quickly come to you, Becky, before heading back to both the grads and Hannah, just to finish things off, because I know one of the main things, one of the big things that you found really helpful, considering like kind of all the remote working things that you've been going through since starting at Fujitsu, is how you've actually been able to create that real social life. And you've touched on that throughout, about looking forward to meeting friends and things like that. But you have done things like games night, movie nights, coffee mornings. How's all of that worked?
Yeah, so I guess it's been a mix of things. So some stuff was by the junior talent. Some stuff was just whole company, or like the whole UK. And then there's other things that have just been created by my team for the members of our team. So I think at the beginning, it was really helpful having those social events organised by junior talent, because you didn't necessarily know people. So it was great to get to know people. We've had cook-alongs, we've had things where we've played a game called Geotastic, which is honestly now one of our favourite games. It's basically you get placed somewhere in the world.
What is it?
You get placed somewhere in the world. It's kind of like GeoGuessr, that used to be a thing, and it's on Google Maps, like Street View kind of, and you have to work out where you are in the world. There's a few different modes, but the one that we like to play is you have like a set amount of time and you have to put a pin on a map as to where you are. So you can use language, you can use what side of the street people are driving on, how people look, you know, like everything to work it out. And now, honestly, I said about games nights and movie nights, everything is just geotastic at the moment. But no, yeah. And then so some of the more Fujitsu as a whole things we've had coffee mornings. There was one that I really enjoyed where you get put randomly, you get paired up with anyone else who's signed up for it from Fujitsu. I think it was Northwestern Europe.
Wow.
And you just have like half an hour to have a coffee with them. There's some prompts about like, I think it was your favorite book or something. And you just have a chat. So I've met some great people who I would never normally meet, even if we were in the office, because, you know, they don't even live in England. So I've been able to meet people like that. And then, kind of the biggest thing for me has been the social events organised within our team. So, you know, like Friday after work, we have games evenings. Sunday at 6 we have a movie night every week, and then there's just other events that we've organised, like we did like a game show where we all got dressed up in fancy dresses and tuxedos and had some drinks, and you know, like it was open to everyone in our team, so like it was the people who joined this year, but also the previous cohorts of junior talent, like our managers were there, and it was just great getting to know everybody, because once you are friends, it's so much better working in a team with these people. You know, like being able to work with your friends is like honestly the best thing, because it doesn't feel like you're doing work as much, you know, because it's like you actually look forward to going on a project with people. And I think has been the best part of it for me, and I'm so looking forward to doing it in real life as well.
Oh, wow. It sounds amazing though. I mean, joining a company remotely is difficult. You know, I think we can all appreciate the situation that you guys have been in, and how difficult that must have been. But, you know, all of those things that you've just mentioned just sound like, you know, it's such a fun place to work, even, you know, with all this going on. And you've still been able to make some really good friends. And the coffee morning thing, I just think sounds amazing, where you just randomly just put in a room with somebody else and don't know who's going to turn up. And yeah, no, it just all sounds brilliant. I'm going to just finish off quickly with you guys before I come back to Hannah. I just want you to give me one reason why a STEM student should apply to join the Fujitsu graduate scheme. So if you had to say one thing, what would it be? And Ben, start with you.
Yeah, I guess it would be that you shouldn't be, as a STEM student, you have a lot of potential. You have so many transferable skills. I know everyone is going to tell you that. You've probably heard it a million times, but actually it is that way, and that you shouldn't be scared of applying to companies, especially Fujitsu, because you don't know everything about coding, and because you don't know this or that. They're not expecting you to know that, and actually you will realize that you pick up things super quickly, and just because of the fact that you've studied STEM, you've done a degree in STEM. I mean, that speaks a lot, and I think you should just be not afraid, because something like is programming, because you'll pick it up, you'll learn it. I mean, if you think about what you knew back in sixth form and what you know now at the end of your degree, everyone's progressed a lot. I've progressed a lot. And you can do that very easily when you start a new company. So yeah, don't be afraid. Go out there and apply, and and you're all very clever, I'm sure. And so yeah, just go for it. That's what I'd say.
Lovely, thanks, Ben. And Becky, to you, if you had one reason, what would that be?
Yes, my main thing that I've loved about working at Fujitsu has been how I joined as like a software developer, and honestly, like my idea of that was like one thing, and I've gone in a totally different direction, and everybody's so like happy to kind of nurture what I want to do. So the projects that I get put on, they're dictated by what I've said I want to be doing. The training that I'm doing, that's as well, like it's picked by me. So you know, it's not as well. I didn't know what UX UI design was when I joined. I didn't think I was that creative, but then since I've joined, it's really like become something that I've loved doing. So I think it will help you find out what you want to do and then nurture that, so you can have a career in it, as opposed to, it's not just like a 2-year job, it's like nurturing you for a career.
That's brilliant, and that's definitely a big takeaway from today, is, you know, thinking about Fujitsu as a career. It's not just going to be that graduate scheme, and we want you long term. So
yeah,
thank you so much, Ben and Becky. It's been amazing hearing from you guys today, and I'm sure like all of our audience are going to be so excited to apply to vacancies later this year. But coming back to finish with you, Hannah, I know you've given us some kind of hints and tips throughout today, so we'll leave that one for now. But what do you think makes the Fujitsu ideal candidate if you had to kind of wrap them up in a neat package?
I think for me, one that's really key, and I've mentioned before, is around kind of that value side of things. So I think as long as when you're doing your research and looking at those companies, I think it's really important to make sure you align with what they believe in as a company. I think that's one of the most important things and helps us to get those real ideal candidates.
Yeah.
I think in any of our roles, so even in more kind of our non-technical stream, that passion for technology and that interest in technology is also key, because I think no matter what role you're in with Fujitsu, you're going to be in contact with, from a project management perspective, from a finance perspective, that interest in technology still needs to be there. That's got to be one of your real driving factors to want to work for us. But as has been said before a number of times, if you don't have all that knowledge, don't worry, don't panic. Just show us what you can do, what potential you've got as a candidate. We're not looking for that finished article. Transferable skills, you're probably told a lot about them, but it is true. We want those people that could just got that potential, that drive, that want, and that need to work for a company like Fujitsu.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hannah. That's a lovely way to wrap that up. So just a note on this, so obviously we've got Ben and Becky, who are from 2 different streams of the Fujitsu graduate scheme, but they do have a number of different roles. So you mentioned stuff like cybersecurity and things like that, Hannah. Now on the Grad Cracker Company Hub, we do have a page that talks about all the various different career paths within Fujitsu, within the technical streams. So if you want to know more about those, you make sure you can go and have a look at the Company Hub. And remember, there is so much more information available on the Company Hub as well for you to explore and get to know Fujitsu even more after the webinar as well. So make sure you head over there, read more about it, and follow them to be alerted to the opportunities when they open in September. So as I hope you found out today, you really don't want to be missing out on these when they do go live in September, because the graduate scheme just sounds like such a fantastic opportunity. Also, everyone watching today, remember to tell your friends that if they've missed the webinar today for any reason, that it'll be available to watch on Fujitsu Company Hub tomorrow, and also in the Grad Cracker Career Centre. And then early next week, we'll also be breaking it up into little bite-sized chunks of different advice for you too. Now, next week, I'm going to be taking a break, and Jessica and Carla will be joined by Essity, a leading global hygiene and health company, and that's next Thursday at 2 o'clock on the 1st of April. So thank you again to Hannah, Becky and Ben, and thank you, Jess. And yeah, it's been great talking to you all, and yeah, see you soon.
See you all
Thanks,
soon.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.